Multinational families threatened with division or exile by the new income thresholds, which were introduced a couple of weeks ago, are planning legal action. So they say it's a cruel and inhumane policy. So the idea was to keep migration numbers down, but the inevitable challenge has happened.
That's right, Eamon. Yeah, so the government are raising the threshold from 18,600 to be exact, to 38,700, which is quite a big jump. I will say this, look, I think if the government need to get down migration, and one of the things they can control is legal migration, this is one of the more sensible choices. I don't think two people can live off of a salary of 18,600 in this day and age, frankly. I think it's impossible almost. So having realistic targets where you say it's a realistic salary you might be able to have two people live off of, certainly not in London, might I add, but elsewhere in the country. So whilst it may seem cruel, and I understand people want to bring their families here and they have worked hard to do so, it seems to me like this is a rather sensible thing to do. And I think
so. You're saying that please do come and work here anyway, but just don't bring anybody related to you. It's us being kind to you. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think the reality is if they come here and they have to live off of that salary together, they're going to be in a bit of poverty and they're going to struggle.
No, there's no doubt. So the rule then should be only if you can live off that salary yourself, that you're the only type of person we really want. If there's someone attached to you, it ain't going to work.
I think that's probably what I would say is right, Eamon. I think, look, if two people, it's just too little on 18,000. I don't think it's plausible, and I don't think many people in this country will see it as a plausible salary. You will end up on more likely end up on benefits and be a burden to the state rather than bringing some value. And I think if you are going to migrate to a country, you should be able to bring value, and your family should bring value as well. I think those are values that everyone can get behind in the country, and I think that's the right policy.
Well, a very, very well argued, mister, I have to say. Stephanie, what would you say to what Alex is saying here?
Gosh, I'm a bit of a softie in that sense, where I do think it's a bit too steep of a hike going from 18,000 to 38,000. Barely anyone in this country is making 38,000, letting someone who's just going to be migrating over here. And I do think there is that thing where families do want to be together. I think there is that kind of moral side of this issue where I think there has to be some kind of loophole that makes it acceptable, where, you know, you're given a certain time frame where you can be given that opportunity to earn this 38,000. I just think it's a bit unrealistic. It's good for the government in terms of deterring people, but you do want families together.
But you talk about deterring people, but we need people. The care sector needs people because we can't recruit them here.
And the thing is, but they're not even paying this kind of money anyway.
The thing is that you're right, and one of the reasons why these salaries are low is because of cheap labour. So you can't actually incentivise higher salaries through bringing on board a lot of cheap labour. And actually, that's a big problem we face in this country, is that immigrants who do come over here are given jobs on a lower salary than the average British person's allowed to have. And so we do need to tackle this issue. And if we're talking about sensible, common sense ways the government can do this, this seems to me like one of them. Like I said, I do get the moral responsibility that people want to live with their families, but you do have to think to yourself, if I'm going to come somewhere and be a burden on the state, is that a good thing to do?
Could you do that, Alex, though? If you were going to work somewhere, could you leave your partner behind, your children behind?
But I don't think I would ever move to a country where I would put my family in that kind of jeopardy in the first place, where they wouldn't be able to put food in their mouths. I think that's
But say if it looked like a better option than from the country that you're living in right now.
Well, then we have to look at it.
Because most people look at Britain as a golden meal ticket, in the sense where they're getting much more benefits than they do back in the countries they're originating from.
You're absolutely right, but then we have to then decide morally as a country, should we allow people to come here when they're not going to add value to the state, and then they have to live off of the taxpayer?
But they will be adding value because they're the ones who are doing the cheap labour jobs,
but then it's
which we don't want to do.
But it's the second other half that's actually not making a salary that's then going to possibly push them into the benefits.
So the way round this is you either dump your other half and you say, right, I'm going to pursue a new career in the UK. You either find somebody who can get a job the same as yours, so you both get into the country together, and then suddenly it all turns out magically well, or you find a new partner here.
No. It's not that black and white, no.
No?
No, not at all. Right. I think people, you know, one person will have a dream, and in most families, you know, there's someone who will have to support the other partner. And
but Stephanie, we're not going to be in this situation. I mean, here's the reality: where you can say, you can have a job in the UK, that's great, and you can bring your wife and your 3 children with you. That's where it's all going wrong.
I know, and I think it is sad, because I do think families should stay together. That is my main thing.
But that's their moral decision to make, right?
Yeah.
They must understand that, and I would look at that if I was moving abroad as well. I'd look at what salary I could earn, if I could bring my other half as well. That would be a very important part of my decision, and then to make sure I can live a good life, not a worse one than I have.
No.
I just think the problem with these kind of schemes is that they need to factor these kind of situations in.
Yes, and also, as Stephanie was saying earlier, who do you get if not these people? Because no one else wants to do these jobs.